how did you get your job? AKA, how did you find yourself doing the work you're doing today?
You know, I always, since the time I was little, Nathan, I always sort of knew I would be an entrepreneur one day. I thought that like I would, save candy that I would get at a holiday. And then I would think, how can I sell this? And so I always kind of had that inkling. But then I actually thought growing up that I would do something totally different. I would sit in my living room and watch Oprah every day as a little girl. And I thought one day I'm gonna share other people's stories with the world. And so, growing up, I kind of had my sights set on that. And I did all kinds of jobs, from waitressing at Denny's to pushing grocery carts in the parking lot and all those things, slicing meat in the deli. And I eventually landed in what I thought was my dream job, which was anchoring television news and sharing people's stories with the world. And like so many entrepreneurs, I had a big problem happen that I couldn't solve. And I kind of had this big aha moment where I was like, oh my gosh, if there's hundreds of companies out there that do this and none of them work for me, like, what if I just try to figure it out? And so, now everyone sees, It Cosmetics, the company that I started in my living room, as this sort of like billion-dollar brand. But how it really started was I was thinking I was in one dream job, thinking I would stay there forever on television news. And I learned this big lesson that sometimes knowing when to go after a dream, or I should say when to let go of a dream, matters as much as when to go after one. And I was just, I was anchoring the news every day and live on camera. And I developed a skin condition called rosacea. So for me, like my cheeks, my forehead, my nose, everything would get really, really red and bumpy. And so I started, spending my whole paycheck on makeup products. And I tried everything out there, from the most expensive stuff to the least expensive, and nothing would work. And there was one moment, Nathan, that was sort of the pivotal moment for me, which was, I was live on air, and all of a sudden I hear in my earpiece from the producer, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. You need to wipe it off. You need to wipe it off. And I'm live over the airways, and I glanced down into my little compact mirror off the side, and I knew what it was. It was that the makeup was kind of breaking up, almost the way, like, if you imagine clay in a desert starts to crack, it was like cracking on my face, and the redness, the bright red skin was coming through. And my producer had no idea what it was. He just thought, like, wipe it off, get it off. And I knew there was nothing I could wipe off. I kept trying to reapply makeup, and it wasn't working. And so this sort of started, what I thought was a season of setback in my life. I thought, like, am I going to get fired? Are viewers changing the channel? Because every single time I would go on the air live, it would happen, right? Because the hot HD lights would start to break up the makeup. And so I would find myself in the same situation. And it was, and then I realized, like, okay, if I can't find anything out there, and there's hundreds of makeup companies, I can't find anything that works for me, there must be so many other people out there that maybe have just given up on makeup or feel like they've never found anything for them. And so, for every person who is a founder or an entrepreneur listening right now, or maybe someone who hasn't taken the leap yet, but they're listening and reading the Founder because they know they want to one day, I want to share that, because this is really important. It's easy to see the outcome and the success story, but for a long time, Nathan, I had this idea, like, what if I launch my own company? What if I do it? And my gut told me I was supposed to do it. Like, I couldn't shake that feeling. But for a long time, I didn't do it because my head was sort of talking me out of it. I would think things like, oh, but you're not qualified, and you don't have any money, and you don't have any connections, and you know what I mean? And so many people, I'm sure, have already tried to do it. And if there's nothing that works, what makes you think you can? And just all of those thoughts that we tend to have. And when I look back now, I am so glad I listened to my gut and went for it and took the big chance, even though it was much harder than I could have imagined. Because I think so often in life, our gut's telling us one thing, but then our head is telling us another, and our life comes down to which one we listen to. So.
Yeah, wow. What a crazy story. So can you tell me kind of, I'm just curious, how long did you have this idea in your head?
Well, it was a couple years because I was just trying to find anything that would work. And one thing that happened that sort of put me over the edge, that I think is really important just to share, especially with anyone out there who, whatever phase they're at in their business or their entrepreneurial journey, is early on. I had a blessing that I look back now and go, thank goodness that happened. And it's really what put me over the edge to really launch this thing and go for it. And, we hear so many amazing thought leaders talk about your why and identifying the why of your business and your brand and your mission. And what I know now, because I've now had the gift of just meeting tens of thousands of entrepreneurs over the years. And a lot of people, I think, they think their why is strong enough, but they haven't actually done the work to peel back the layers and like go deeper and get to the why beneath the why that's so powerful that they can lean on it when the times are super tough and they're tempted to quit. And when I look back at this moment after having this idea for a couple years, one thing that happened so, I guess, serendipitously, or out of sheer grace, I should say, is that, initially I thought like, oh, okay, I can just create a makeup product that if it works for me, it'll probably work for so many other people. So my why could have very easily been like, oh, I'll solve my own problems, but I'll help so many other people too. And I think a why like that is why so many entrepreneurs fail. And here's what I mean by that. Because when we share a why like that with someone else, they're like, that's great. That's so virtuous. That's awesome. And then we think it's enough. We think it's enough if we have a why that's I'm going to help people or this or that. Because, I did want to help people. But what happened, and I want to call this out for anyone listening, because I think this is really important. Challenge yourself, whatever you believe your mission or your personal why is for your own company. And this isn't something that has to be part of your mission statement. I'm more talking about as a founder, your personal why for why you're doing what you're doing, or perhaps why you have a big goal that you're working on. Is take your why, but then literally go deeper, like peel back the layers and try to go deeper to the deep why beneath the why. And in my case, what happened is I realized like at this one moment, and this is what put me over the edge to launch everything, was like, I was like, I don't understand. This makes no sense that there are so many companies. Why do none of them work for me? And then what I realized was like, wait, I've actually never seen a model who has like bright red rosacea selling makeup products, right? And then I started thinking about growing up as a little girl. And what I realized is every time I would see the beauty ads on television or in magazines, like I loved them. I aspired to, look like them. But at a real deep level, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough. And I had this big moment where I realized like, okay, I want to launch products that work, but what if when I launch a beauty company, what if I can actually use real people as models and like all different ages and shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges and call them beautiful and mean it. And what if I could actually like shift the definition of beauty inside the entire industry, for every little girl out there who's about to start doubting herself and every grown person who still does. And it was kind of this huge, crazy idea for someone that was sitting there with no money, no connections, not sure how it was even going to happen. But I got that deep, deep, deep why that was so not just painful, but really meaningful, purposeful for me. And that came early on. And, after I jumped into entrepreneurship and, poured every penny I had into it, I didn't know it would be 3 years before I could even afford to pay myself at all. I didn't know that I would get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of no's. And I think that as founders, as entrepreneurs, as people with big dreams on our heart, we need like a toolbox of things we can pull from that help us maintain our resiliency. And for me, I think one of those real important tools was really that deep, 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 meaningful why, where I realized, okay, what I'm doing is bigger than myself. It's not just about me, right? And the last thing I'll say to this really quickly, because I think sometimes people think their why has to be some like global, grandiose, thing. Sometimes your why, your deep why, may have nothing to do with your actual company, but your deep why may be like, I'm going to be the first person in generations of my family to break a cycle of poverty or of lack, or I'm going to be the first person that, goes for it and doesn't let self-doubt hold me back in my entire family, right? It could be, there's deep whys, or I want to show my children what it looks like to go after a dream. There's a lot of different whys beneath the why, but I think identifying one of those that really truly hits home is such a key, because being a founder or an entrepreneur at any stage, right? I've kind of seen a lot of different stages, from no money, no one believes in you, you're about to go bankrupt for a few years, to private equity investment and massive growth, to we built to over 1,000 employees. And when we eventually were acquired by L'Oreal, it was our largest acquisition in the US in their history. And then I was part of the largest beauty company in the world as well. So it's kind of like I've seen inside all those, and they all come with their challenges. But I think no matter what phase you're at, having that deep why beneath the why is super, super important to do the work for. It's worth spending the time in, for sure.
It's been a journey. So, and I've really been, it's funny because we have like mutual friends and stuff, but like they're really new in my life, because for almost a decade, like all I did was like work and like trying to build the company, you know what I mean? And so, that's why seeing that pajama party, I was like, I've got to go. Like, I want to be around girlfriends. Like, I need to get a life, because for a long time I didn't have one. So.
It's hard to have one when you're doing when you do what you did to that level. And then, I mean, people think it's like, people are overnight successes, but you're a testament to, that is not the case. I mean, it's hard to have a social life and go to pajama parties when you are, you're building and grinding and hustling to create what you created. And it's funny because I'm not a makeup person by any stretch of the imagination, right? But I knew what It Cosmetics was, because you guys have a concealer and a BB cream, or is it a CC? I can't remember. Is it a CC cream that I use?
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a crazy journey. And, I think part of it, because growing up, like I didn't see any type of business, like monetary success, any stuff like that around me. My parents worked super hard. But my journey was really different. Like I worked as a Denny's waitress, and pushed grocery carts in the Safeway parking lot and all those things, like, and trying to pay my way through school and stuff like that. And I always kind of like had this like gut feeling like, okay, like I'm meant to serve or give or something. Like I'm meant to do more than like what I'm doing right now and where I'm at. And it's been a decade of like literally starting with close to nothing. And then, when I launched this idea, this kind of dream, I had no idea how hard it would be. Like the first 3 years of the business was like hundreds of no's, like tons of rejection, some of it really brutal. I think so many people like have a dream and then they're like, oh, and then once you go after it, you're like, oh, this isn't happening like I thought it was going to happen. And there's like no proof around me that it's actually a good idea. And like, what was I thinking? And did I is my gut wrong? And it was really this crazy journey in so many ways of where it started to then building it into a $1 billion business. And, the thing when I, over the years, and really why I wrote this book, my first ever book, is really because, and it's by the way, it's such a big week right now, launch week of the book. I'm excited to share it with you and your whole community and everything. But this book is really like, oh gosh, it's I've noticed that you always see, like when you Google, right, you see the headlines like, oh, struggling waitress sells $1 billion company. And I get so many DMs on Instagram from women, especially saying like, oh, like, how did you do it? Did you just get lucky? Or like, did you all these things? And I'm like, oh, wow. It made me realize that so often, like, we don't ever see the story behind the story of stuff. And when we don't see that, then it's like when we go through our own setbacks and our own struggles, it's like we feel alone in them, or like it must be us, or maybe we're not the kind of person that success happens to, or whatever. And just seeing really DMs on Instagram and just getting these questions over the years, I'm like, you know what? Like, I had this moment where I realized I'm actually, for the first time ever, like gonna share like everything that really happened. And the book, Believe It, is a story, really my story of going from a girl who didn't believe in herself to believing in herself, and like not trusting herself, to like learning how to trust herself, doubting that she's enough, to like learning to believe she's enough. And what really inspired me to write it was like, oh yeah, it's my story, but it's also the story of so many other women and people out there right now who are like, you know, who have this like feeling like, you know, they're made for more, or they have a feeling like they have more to give, or whether it's like launch the podcast, or start painting again, or like write the first chapter of the book, or, you know, join a dance class, whatever it is, like they know inside they're created for more, but like they doubt themselves anyway. And when I think back on my whole journey, like why I wanted to write this book really is for every person out there who really is dealing with doubt in their own head, whether it comes from their own head or from like the people around them, like other people's opinions, or just the simple fact that they're trying their dream and they're trying to build their business, or they're trying to, you know, get clients for their dance studio, whatever it is. And like the success around them isn't happening right now. And it's like, how do you know? How do you learn to hear your own gut and trust it? How do you learn to like break through all the noise of self-doubt and really learn to believe you are enough and to step into all that you are and all that you're called to be? And I think that so many people give up or stay in their comfort zone and never actually you know, become the person they're created to be because of so many reasons, right? And it's why so many people quit. And so anyhow, this book is really for every person just on their journey who wants like all the tips and lessons of how to do that. And I really share like so many personal and professional stories, right, of learning to do that. And then I also share the stuff I still am struggling with, where it's still a work in progress. And it's just raw and emotional and vulnerable. And honestly, I'm scared because I'm used to like, let me give a CEO talk in the boardroom. And this is like, oh no, this is the real shit. This is the real stories behind the stories that are really personal. But my prayer is just that it's not about me. And it's, you know, I'm donating the book. I'm donating 100% of the proceeds of the book. Like I'm not doing, literally the only reason I'm doing this book is because for me, it's the best, I think, best work I've ever done in my life. And that I know it's not about me. And my prayer is just that it helps every single person out there on their own journey of knowing they're enough and stepping into all of who they are. So that was a long answer, but a
a good one. I love it. You know, you gave me a lot of good little nuggets to go with there. First of all, where is the proceeds? Do you have a charity that you're going to be giving
No, two of them, but one of the big ones too is Feeding America. Because right now, I mean, wow, what a year it's been for so many of us. And there's tens of millions of families now that are food insecure, and, you know, we're going to have a vaccine, but we're still going to go through a really tough season. And they're saying it could go, you know, well into 2021. And I think that right now, I think it's like the last number I read was 17 million kids are food insecure just in our country right now. So, so that's a big one. And by the way, I was a Denny's waitress. I know how to serve food. So now I'm just gonna don't eat a lot of food.
I saw that. I think I also saw that you said something like you were at Denny's, but you lost the job because you talked too much and gave away too much free food.
Oh my gosh. Well, here, you know what's funny? Okay, this is the funny thing is, I don't know if I would love to hear too if you feel the same way, but I think so many times in our lives, like the setbacks we go through end up being like setups for like actually things we're supposed to do next or walk into next. And when I think about Denny's, so the Denny's I worked at, which was in Pullman, Washington, had massive operational issues. Sometimes it would take like an hour for the pancakes to come out, and people would get mad, right? So some people would leave, and then some people would stay, but then they wouldn't tip me. And I'm like, I have nothing to do with the pancake timing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so what's funny is, and I'm like kind of an introvert normally, and that job, I was like, dude, I'm trying to pay my way through school. Like I can barely afford my tuition, my bills. I'm like, I've got to get tips. And so I learned to talk, like, just talk to people and to
kind of get them kind of like okay with the wait.
Yes, because it was the longest wait for the pancakes to come out. Anyways, I eventually, got fired for talking too much. But I believe, and by the way, the cool thing that came out of it was like, I didn't know it at the time. I never knew one day I'd start a business or anything, but I had this lesson ingrained in me that like, oh, if your operations aren't right, it can impact everything else. And I remember, and like for a lot of us, when we launch a business or a dream or whatever, we want to do the thing we love, but we don't want to handle the operations. We don't want to. And I just remember that lesson. And I remember when we created It Cosmetics, I'm like, okay, we've got to figure out the operational infrastructure, because if that's not there, it's like everything else collapses, even though operational infrastructure is not my passion. But I thank Denny's for that lesson.
For that first lesson. Yeah. It's 100% true. I always say that too. I feel like so many times when things were disappointments, it ends up working. It does end up there. Kind of like a silver lining does happen, or another opportunity arises that you never even knew existed because of that setback.
Yeah.
And it's a very important it's a really important life lesson, or like an important thing to remember in those darker times when things are not working.
And it's hard, right? Because when you're in that dark moment, like I can think of so many major no's in my journey of building the company where I thought like, oh my gosh, everything's on the line. I need this investor to say yes, because I don't know how I'm going to make it if he doesn't. Or I am dreaming for years of being in this retailer and like they keep saying no, but I need this yes. And then it's like those big rejections, right? Sometimes it's a friend rejecting us. Sometimes it's someone we're totally into that we're dating, and then we're like, oh, so they're just not that into us. Those things hurt, like they hurt and they suck and they are devastating. And there's a million nights I cried myself to sleep, but like, so it's hard to do it. But like, when I look back at everything, I just know that's true, that our setbacks, no matter how painful they are, really are set up. So like if we're open to,
if you're open to that,
yeah,
and open to seeing the other opportunities or the windows that are opening when the door slams on your face, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So a couple of different things again that you were saying. Number one, that you were, and you open with this in your book, and I've heard you talk about this, is that you very much trust your intuition and your gut, and it's more really. If you can give anyone, I saw you say this you said this in the book, your gut and intuition is more important than other people's advice, which I'm a strong believer in, right? But it's very difficult for some people to do that, right? Because of that self-doubt, because of that fear. How did you kind of hone that skill of really listening to your gut?
Yeah.
Was there like a tip, a moment in your life, or like some kind of turning point when you kind of decided to kind of go that way, or explain that?
Yeah, I think that it's for every person. I think it's a journey, and I think a lot of people don't start the journey. I think that I believe we all have an intuition, like an inner knowing.
Mm.
And I think what happens for so many of us is that, to your point, the noise of self-doubt is in our own head. We have other people's opinions all around us. We have experts who are credible and touted visionaries saying how stuff should be done, right? In some cases. And there's so much. We turn on the news and people are fighting. We have there's so much everywhere that it ends up being so noisy that we almost can't even hear our own gut anymore. And a lot of people never ever really just develop that ability to just get still and hear it. And a lot of people have heard it in the past, but it's been a long time. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or they think they heard it and it turns out to be wrong. And then they start doubting themselves. So for me, it's been a journey. And one of the big things is when I look back, because there are so many times where I doubted my gut, and I was like, oh, you know what? They're experts for a reason, or this person's had so much success. Let me just listen to them, even though it's not quite sitting right with me. And when I look back at a lot of the mistakes I made, they were all really around times when I went against my own gut. And so it's really a thing I think we develop over time, really by paying attention. And I think we're all born with it, though. I think we have it. And then I think our life lessons build on it. But it's sometimes it's simple. It's we date a dude and we're like, oh, he's sketchy, but we don't want to believe it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Oh, maybe his phone did break. And yes. Maybe he just fell asleep last night and I couldn't get a hold of him. He didn't disappear. He wasn't somewhere else. Right. And we kind of know. And we know. We know. And we choose not to. And I think that carries through our whole life. And, for me, getting still, it's a practice. It's a journey. But getting still, even 5 minutes a day, and that's hard. A lot of people try to get still, whether it's to meditate or in prayer, whatever it is. But when you try to get still for 5 minutes, no phone, no anything. Sometimes I just go in the closet because I have 2 little ones.
No, me too. I know. I do that all the time.
And I just literally try to get still, and I'm not perfect at it because I try to hear my gut. And sometimes I end up thinking of my to-do list or whatever else is going on, but I really work on it to tune into that. And when I look back, there's, so many stories that I share in this book I've never shared before. But one of the most powerful lessons in my entire career and my life came down to a moment when we got one shot on QVC. And what had happened is, we'd been building from our living room for 3 years and hearing no from everybody. And QVC said no several times. And one day I got their head guy, Alan Burke, who'd built this billion-dollar beauty empire, on the phone. And I thought for sure if he's going to give me a few seconds of his time, it's going to be a yes. And
how did you get him on the phone? How did you get him on the phone first?
Yeah, by obsessively sending products for 2.5 years.
Okay.
LinkedIn, I would go on LinkedIn and send messages to any person that worked at QVC. It didn't matter to me what their job title was. And I tried to send them products if I could get them.
Yeah.
And I finally begged his assistant to just set up a call with me. Could you just get him to review the product? So it was a lot of that.
And I thought you were going to say that, what I thought was super clever, before you even tell everyone the QVC story, which I think is a very poignant point in your career, or at It Cosmetics.
Yeah.
You called was it Marie at itcosmetics.com? Yeah. That's your middle name. And you use that as you pretend that was your PR person, which is so scrappy, so clever and gritty. I loved it. I highlighted it really, really strong.
I love that you have a highlighter in your hand right now. I'm so excited. I love it.
This is my best friend, by the way. This is this highlighter lives with me.
You know what? So the Marie story, here's the
That's
thing.
amazing.
I was like, let me just share all of it because I don't want people to just go, oh, that's great. These kind of things happen to other people. But like for me, I can't afford to hire anyone or whatever, right? But we all go through that. And so like, I share so many stories of like, how did I figure this out with no money or no connections or whatever? And it's like, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do because I couldn't afford to hire anybody, right? My husband and I, we wrote the business plan on our honeymoon flight and, both quit our jobs and thought, oh, we'll take our small amount of savings, pour it into making the best product ever, hiring an advisory board, and then the product is going to sell. And then I didn't realize, oh, it's not that easy, and didn't realize it would be 3 years before I could afford to pay myself. And so, in those early years, like I couldn't afford to hire people who knew what they were doing in like all these areas, and so you figured out. I would Google like everything, FDA regulatory compliance and how to write the labels on the packaging and like just everything. And I got to the point where I'm like, okay, my name's Jamie Marie Kern Lima. And so Marie, which is my middle name, got her own email address, right? Marie at itcosmetics.com. And she became head of PR, head of customer service. Like she was a hustler. And so she would like email, the Today Show, Good Morning America, and be like, great news. Our founder, Jamie Kern Lima, is available for an interview.
I love it.
And we're launching a new product. Like, and just like, so Marie was a hustler. And Marie got just as many no's, a lot more ignores, but she hustled and she got some press. Good
for her.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, listen, it's like, the journey, it's hard. And I feel like these stories and so many of the stories I share in the book, I feel like they're so important to share because now we're sitting in this world where we like see everything on social media. And a lot of times people, whether they want to, write a book or maybe they have an idea for a business or a product or something, but they're like, oh, they see everyone on social media like, oh, everyone's already done my idea and it looks so good. Like it's working so well for them. And then they talk themselves out of their own purpose and their own calling and their own truth, right? And I think like what's so important is like, oh, just because you see, in my case, if you Google, you see like, oh, $1 billion success story, whatever. It's like, oh, no. Like, here's what really happened. And if someone's listening right now and they're going through a season of rejection and a season of disappointment and a season of setbacks, I just feel like it is so important to know that when we go through those, we're not alone. And it's no indication of the potential of your idea or your success or your dream or your calling. It's like, oh no, like we're all in this together. This stuff happens to almost all of us, and here's the things I did that helped me not quit and help me keep going and help me believe even when other people didn't. And one of my biggest, only if you want me to share it, but one of the biggest lessons on just trusting your own gut versus what
I want you to talk about that. That's a huge, the QVC story. That to me was like a major pivotal moment in your entire career. So I just wanted to hear first how I want you to tell whoever who's listening. How did you finally, because it wasn't like this was your first time contacting QVC. It was many, many times. It was no. You were told no by Sephora and by private equity people who were rude to you. And
and your question about getting a hold of that guy.
Yeah. How did you finally get in touch with them?
When we finally got through, his assistant finally set up a call. I thought for sure. I was like, oh my gosh, Alan Burke is getting on the phone with me. Like, this is going to be like, I was freaking out, like pacing my office, which was our living room. And and I remember when we finally got on the phone call and he's like, hello, Jamie, this is Alan Burke from QVC. And I'm like, okay, I'm like trying to tell myself like they'd be lucky to have us. Like I'm like, hi, Alan, like nice to meet you. And he was so kind and awesome and all those things. And he said, listen, we've reviewed your products with all the buyers here, and it's unanimous. It's a no. You're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. And I'm like, oh, but I am the right fit. And let me tell you why. And like, I just tried again and poured my heart out, and it was a no. And so I thanked him for his time, and like literally tears are streaming down my face because I didn't know at this point, we're a few years in, like, how are we going to make it? And that day I remember like going to bed, crying myself to sleep. And I don't know if you've ever had this happen where you like get really bad news and then you go to bed and then you wake up the next morning and you hoped it was a dream.
Yes, of course. Happens all the time.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, it wasn't. And it was like, that was what it was like for 3 days in a row. And anyhow, we had a season of several years of no's from everybody. The QVC, and by the way, QVC was my dream because my whole life, for like similar to so many of us, I had always seen magazines and commercials on TV with these models that had perfect skin and all these things. And I remember growing up, seeing all of them and going, oh, I want to aspire to look like that. But then always somehow also feeling like I wasn't enough when I saw them. And I didn't put this all together until my journey of getting rosacea on my cheeks, which is, hereditary skin condition, and trying everything I could get my hands on and none of it working, and making that decision that, you know what, I'm going to quit my job as a journalist. And my whole life, I've dreamed of being a talk show host, and that I love other people's stories, like not mine, other people's stories. And I thought I was going to do that my whole career. And when I had this moment, like, my gut just kept telling me like, nothing's working for you. There must be so many other people out there like you who maybe have skin challenges or whatever. And they just like given up on makeup altogether, whatever. And I just, that feeling, I knew I needed to do it. And so anyhow, so part of my whole mission from the very beginning was to not just create a product that worked for me and that helped other people, but to create a beauty company where like all the models I use and call beautiful models and mean it are every age and every size and every skin tone and every skin challenge. And I wanted to shift culture in the beauty industry around inclusivity. So I had this dream of QVC for that reason, because it's live. It's live 24/7 television to 100 million homes. And I was like, oh, I can go on and like take my makeup off, show my bright red rosacea, and show for real how the product works, not in a magazine or TV ad where you don't even know if they're wearing the product. You know what I mean?
Right.
And let me put like real women of every age and size and, skin challenge and really try to shift close. So I dreamed of QVC. I just felt it in my gut that I was supposed to be on QVC. And so to get Alan Burke on the phone and to have him tell me, you're not the right fit for our customers or for QVC was devastating. And, and it's hard. And it was one of those moments for me where I had to figure out how to turn down the volume, in this case, on his opinion, and like try to just turn up the volume of my own gut that said, okay, because every time I would check in with my gut and I would hear it, it's like, you're on the right track. You're supposed to be doing this. And I'm like, is my gut wrong? Because no one else is believing in it. The experts that have done incredible things aren't believing in it, right? And those are the tough moments. And I think those are the moments that make people give up, that make people quit, that made people talk themselves out of their own dreams and their own truth and never step into all that they were created to be, because it's so easy and it makes so much sense in our heads to trust the people who are experts who are telling us how to do it. So anyways, it was a moment where, and I did a lot of things wrong in my journey. And I talk about so many of those in the book too, but this was one of the things I did right, where I was like, you know what, my gut is telling me to keep going. And I did. And we eventually were at a big beauty expo, and a QVC host came up to the booth. There were 6,000 women there, and I was demonstrating our product, and she loved our product, and something, she had this feeling to come up to me and to try and give me a shot. And long story short, we got one shot on QVC. And this is where one of the biggest life lessons and business lessons in terms of trusting your gut over experts or anyone else, happened. And so we had one shot and 10 minutes on QVC. And here's the thing is it's a consignment deal in beauty, which what this meant. And by the way, we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website at the time. And I didn't know how we were going to make it. Like had no idea how we weren't going to go bankrupt. And we got this shot on QVC. But they ordered 6,000. We had to sell over 6,000 units of Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer in this 10-minute window in order to hit their sales goal or not come back. And I was like, okay, but the challenge was we had to pay for it, manufacture, and ship it all into them. And then if it didn't sell in that 10 minutes, we had to take it all back and not be paid for it. So everything was on the line. We didn't even have the money to do this. So we applied for SBA loans and the first 22 banks said no. And bank number 23 said yes. And we got enough money just to cover the order, the purchase order.
Because that can bankrupt a company as well. People don't understand.
2 seconds absolutely. And, for entrepreneurs and you should never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose ever. And we couldn't afford to lose this one. But we also had almost like run out of options. Like it was like, okay, we're going to just go all in. And so knowing this and knowing it came down to this one shot on live TV in 10 minutes, we hired these third-party consultants and all of them told me the same thing. And by the way, they're great. And they help so many people sell well on television and all those things, they know what they're doing. And we worked with them and they all told me the same thing. They're like, okay, if you want to have a chance, if you want to have a shot, because most people, when they launch on QVC, it's like one time, they never come back. It's really hard.
Oh, I know.
Right?
People don't even understand those statistics. I mean, it's very, very rare that people have the story that you had, right? Where you just sell out, whatever, but we'll get to that in a second. But and that's when companies like die on the vine right in that moment.
Yes. And I've seen it happen so many times too live and it's the most devastating thing. And because it's everyone's dream, and, and to get one shot is even that part. I mean, so for us, it was 3 years of hustling and trying, getting no's. And so we got this one shot. And when we hired these experts, they all told me the exact same thing, which is, if you want to have a shot at success, here's what you need to do. You need to use these type of models, which were the same type of models I'd seen in commercials my whole life that made me feel like I wasn't enough. And, this age, this, all those things, and do your sell this way. And I would argue with them and say, okay, but like, if I'm sitting at home watching this, right? And let's say I'm 75 years old and I'm, have hyperpigmentation, whatever it is. If I don't see anyone that looks like me, instead I see someone who looks like they're 12 with pop, like, how do I know it's going to work for me? Like, right. And I'd be like, and listen, I'm going to take my own makeup off and show my rosacea on national TV. And they're mortified. And I'm like, because if I were at home and I had rosacea too, I'd want to know, what is the product going to do? What does it really work? Like all those things. And it was so tough because they're like, listen, and they wanted the best for me. They were telling me the very best advice they knew. And I learned a huge lesson, which by the way, this applies to everyone, no matter what situation you are in life. When other people, even experts, even friends, even loved ones, when they're giving you their advice and their opinion, they can mean so well, but they are only capable of giving it to you through their own lens. Right? Of limitation, their own lens of experience. And the other thing I've learned too, especially when it comes to experts, is even people that are like considered visionaries, and they are in so many ways, if you're doing anything that is new or novel or different, and even if you're doing something that's already been done a million times, but it's you doing it authentically, which means it's a different take on it, right? So by definition, it's new. Anytime you do something new, most likely experts aren't going to believe it's going to be successful and they're not going to know they're doing this, but like subconsciously, they've never seen proof that it is going to be successful because it's never been done before. And so like, had I learned that lesson earlier, I would have saved myself so many nights crying myself to sleep when so many of them didn't believe that this new way of doing a beauty company would work. And so anyhow, there I was with one shot in front of me, a 10-minute window to either literally change my whole future or go bankrupt, which would also change my whole future.
Yeah, right.
And it felt like way too heavy for me to handle. And I flew out to QVC a week before our one shot on air. And I had this rental car and I sat in the parking lot all alone of QVC, just staring at the front door, watching people go in and out all day. I don't know why I parked there, but anyways, I was just there. And
Why did you go a week early?
It was so heavy for me that first of all, I got there and I started going, okay, I once heard Olympic athletes visualize themselves landing the triple axel or standing on the podium. I'm like, I'm going to try that. So I sat in that car and I was like envisioning the sold out sign coming up on the screen. I was envisioning real women. I sat there, I prayed, I cried. It felt so heavy. At one point I asked God to take it from me because I couldn't handle the pressure. And I wasn't scared for television. I just knew that this one shot was either going to, I was
make or break.
Exactly. When I would watch people go in and out of the doors, I was like, okay, the next time I walk through those doors, when I walk back out, it's either going to be life-changing or it's going to be, devastating. And I also just needed that time to really know what to do, because it's really hard when everyone else is saying one thing and our gut's like, oh no, but that's not authentic to why you're doing what you're doing. But I didn't have a chance to try it both ways. And I just remember sitting in that car trying to decide, okay, do I cast all the models they're telling me to have a shot at success? Or do I risk it all and take my makeup off and show real women of all shapes and ages and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges? And I just sat there and I knew what to do. But it's so hard when our mind tells us one thing and our heart and our gut is telling us another thing. And
absolutely.
Right. And at one point I just sat there in the car and I had this moment where I was imagining who she is watching. And, I think of so many different types of women. And the one that just would always jump out at me is I would imagine, for some reason, I don't know why, a single mom in Nebraska, folding laundry, who is too busy to remember that she matters and that she's beautiful and that she's worth it, all those things. And I had this moment in that car where I was like, you know what? I would rather if she's going to give me 5 seconds of her precious time to see me on QVC in the background of whatever she's doing, I would rather have her glance up on that television, not buy anything, and see me standing there showing women that look like her and calling them beautiful and meaning it. I'd rather do that than sell a shitload of product and stand for nothing. You know what I mean? It was that moment where it's I knew what I had to do, but sometimes we know and it's not easy.
Yeah, exactly. And then we acquiesce to who the expert is or who the person is we're supposed to listen to.
Yeah.
And you didn't.
Well, and it was, I remember the moment. So that, the count. So I was standing there, I'm in the studio, we're about to go live and they have this big countdown clock, right? And it's at 10 minutes. And I just remember all of a sudden the cameras turn on and you see the on-air thing go on. And I was freaking shaking like a leaf, and I'm not nervous for TV. That's what I did for my
Yes, you do for a living.
Yeah. It was all the pressure. And,
yes, of course.
And I was and then I saw the clock go 9:59, 9:58. 9:57. I was like, oh, and you can't try to sell or nothing sells. You can't freak out or nothing sells. But inside, I'm like, okay, this is bigger than me. I can't get in my own head. My dress was too tight that day. It was a whole. Anyways, I was like, I cannot get in my own head. And I just remember the show. I remember the moment they pulled my bare face before a shot on national television, and I just remember this whole thing. And then I went over to all of our models who are all different ages, shapes, sizes, everything, skin tones, skin challenges. And I all of a sudden I remember we were and by the way, if you're not doing well, let's say you're 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minutes into your 10-minute segment. Yeah. If you're not doing well, they know by the second if sales are happening. So your clock jumps down to 2 minutes and in your head or 1 minute, you're like, oh, I just lost a product, or I just lost this much money, right? Because they don't mess around. It's like, and
so they don't even necessarily give you the whole 10 minutes.
Exactly.
So they
Right.
know really quickly on if you're going to like even.
Yeah. And it's interesting because if you think about like Target or Walmart, like you get shelf space. And if you don't do well, you lose your shelf space, right?
Yeah.
And
don't you spend money on those shelf spaces, don't you? Don't you spend money on the,
Probably, yeah. But like with QVC, it's the same thing. It's just business, but it's more immediate, literally right then and there. So all this pressure's on. And I just remember praying that my clock did not jump down, right? And it's like all the minutes are going by. And then I was showing, all of our real women, all the models. And then I remember there was about a minute left. And the host is like, the deep shade is almost sold out. The tan shade is almost gone. And I'm like, and then I remember literally there was 1 second left, and the sold out sign came up across the screen, and I was like, and literally these tears started streaming down my face. They cut and went right on to the next studio, whatever item was next, a Dyson vacuum or something. I don't remember. And then all of a sudden I was just like sobbing hysterically. And then my husband came rushing through the double doors of the studio. And I was like, real women have spoken. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I was like,
oh my God.
And it was this crazy story. And, that one airing turned into 5 that year, and then 150 the next year. And then we did over 250 shows a year for 8 years and built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And it is right now at this moment, to this
day.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and I only share that because it was 3 years of hearing no. It was 3 years of even Alan Burke saying you're not the right fit for QVC. And so many of us get that opposition, and that's what we listen to, right? And it's easy. And it's like Jay-Z. Jay-Z said that famous quote, like he said, the genius thing we did was we didn't give up, right? And so many times it comes down to that, and also just figuring out how to believe that it's possible to succeed. It's just not happening yet. One more. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. And then I'll ask you after.
You said earlier about when we were talking about how our setbacks turn into setups, and like sometimes we can't see it at the time. And so one more thing just to share is Alan Burke, who had said, no, you're not the right fit. After we launched on QVC, oh my gosh, he ended up becoming, I got to know him so well, and he became like one of our greatest champions, one of the best advisors we've ever had. And then he became one of my closest mentors, and he is to this day. And he is so freaking brilliant. It's the biggest blessing. But anyways, he ended up retiring from QVC, and we ended up hiring him in a paid position on our advisory board. And I had this moment where I realized, oh my gosh, the guy that rejected me is now working for me. And I was like, listen, like no one can tell you you're not the right fit. Like no one can, right? And the last thing I'll say about that, and this is important too, because even though all the years of no's hurt, Sephora rejecting me hurt, Alan Burke saying you're not the right fit hurt. Like sometimes those painful no's are like actually like serendipitous grace, like in our favor, right? Wrapped in this like package label, painful rejection. Because what I later learned was Alan Burke was right all along. I just didn't know what I didn't know. And had he said yes to us when I wanted him to, we would have failed, because we did not have the infrastructure you need to support the back end of the business for an account like QVC. But I didn't know what I didn't know. And similarly, we didn't have the right team to be able to support an Ulta or a Sephora yet in terms of education across the country. Like we built up a team of over 1,000 employees, but during the years when we were getting told no from everybody, I didn't know what I didn't know. And thank goodness we didn't get a yes sooner, because we would have failed and we may not have gotten another chance. And so, a lot of full circle moments. They're so hard to see when we're in them, but when we keep going, we get to that point where we have those things happen.
Well, I was going to ask you, I was going to say, whatever happened to Alan Burke? Because why did he say, did you ever, my question was, what, did he ever give you a reason why he said no? So did he tell you on that phone call when you spoke to him, why?
No, he just said, you're not the right fit for us. We reviewed your brand, our customers.
How did he know what your back end was? How would he know what your,
I think
right? So do you think he was just making that up because he felt silly that he said no to the...
He didn't know what our back end was. He just said no. I think that he thought our packaging wasn't ready and that we weren't ready, but he didn't know I think some people call it the universe. Other people call it divine orchestration. Other people call it God. I really believe the famous saying that things happen for us, not to us, right? So he didn't know what our operational infrastructure was. He just probably knew in his own gut to say no. You know what I mean? And that we weren't ready or whatever. And that's why I think like sometimes things don't make sense when they happen against us. But like when we learn to trust ourselves and trust that things are divinely orchestrated, whether some people call it the universe, some people call it God. For me, faith's a big deal, but like that, I know. Believe that,
Have you always been very religious or did you kind of come to it more later on in life?
I was raised where my parents made me, keyword made, forced me to go to church every Sunday. And I never connected with it growing up. Like I didn't whenever the pastors would give sermons, I literally couldn't connect with any of it. I would tune it out. I would scan the church pews for boys, cute boys, and I would just like count down the minutes, like hoping it would end. And, I always prayed and I always believed in God growing up. And then my journey was really different of God doubt, a lot of God doubt. And what I mean by that is like, I always wanted to see new cultures, new experiences, and new people who didn't look like me or pray like me or love like me. And I just wanted that so badly. And so I was always, that's why I worked so many jobs. I was like, I got to get out and I got to get somewhere else and experience new things. And I went to school and then I ended up going to graduate school in New York City. And when I did that, I was for the first time really around so many people who had so many different faiths and a lot of people with no faith. And I was around so many science-based arguments on why God doesn't exist. And they all started to really make a lot of sense to me, right? People that believe, like they don't believe in anything unless you can see it, prove it, touch it, for with faith is not required. And it really started impacting me. And there was a season I went through. I was working as a news anchor in Portland, Oregon.
I want to go back in time because, I've heard you on the stages that you speak around the world talk about how you started as a waitress in Denny's. Mm-hmm. And then from waitressing at Denny's, pursued a dream that you had of being on television. Mm-hmm. And as a fellow former waitress, I would love to start there.
Yeah, waitress at Denny's, full uniform, name tag to prove it.
Oh, I forgot they had uniforms.
Full uniform.
What was your favorite thing on the menu?
Oh gosh, I love the pancakes. You know what? Just like simple. It's so funny how our steps are ordered, I think, in life. And so often, I remember being a waitress at Denny's. I remember feeling, and maybe someone listening to us can relate to this right now. You have this feeling inside of you like there's something more I'm supposed to do, but you don't know what it is yet. And you doubt it might be possible. And I remember being waitress at Denny's and just feeling like I have these big dreams, but not quite knowing like, how do I believe I'm worthy of them yet? And it was this big season in my life. At the same time, Mel, the kitchen at the Denny's I worked at was a disaster. Like they would take an hour to get pancakes out. So I learned to talk to people so that they wouldn't leave. They often did leave. Or they'd throw like a dime and a penny on the table and leave.
As your tip, as if it's your fault.
Yeah,
that the
exactly.
Food were.
But it's so funny how, years later when I ended up launching my own business, I'm like, oh, I've got to get the operations right or nothing else matters. It's just those little things we learn along the way. But yeah, after that, I I thought my whole life I would have a talk show. I watched Oprah in my living room growing up, so I thought for sure I would share other people's stories with the world. So I went into, did all the jobs, saved up all my money to pay for school, and push grocery carts in the grocery parking lot, sliced meat in the deli, all those fun jobs, and then found myself in what I thought was my dream job, working in TV news. And I thought, this is it, right? And what I didn't realize was I was about to enter this huge season of setback in my life, of self-doubt. I have a skin condition called rosacea. And for me, it started getting really red, really bumpy. And I would be anchoring the news live, thinking like, okay, this is it, this is it. And I started hearing in my earpiece from my producer, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. You
Oh
need
my
to wipe it
God.
off. You need to. And I was live on television, right? And I would glance down during the commercial break and I saw, oh, the makeup is breaking up on my face and these big red bumps are coming through. And it started this season that felt like setback. But so often in life, the seasons that feel like setbacks are actually setups for what we're called to do.
Okay, stop right there. Did you hear that? The seasons of your life that are setbacks are often setups for what you're called to do. I want to just make sure everybody heard that. And I want to take a highlighter and also highlight something that you said about being a waitress at Denny's. And it's this. You said our steps are ordered.
Mhm.
So can you explain what that means, particularly to somebody who's listening,
Yeah.
who may feel like, I know I'm meant for something greater.
Yes.
Why the hell am I at this step? And this does not feel like it is like on the path of where I'm supposed to go. So what do you mean by the fact that our steps are ordered?
Yeah. I believe, everything in life
Yep.
is happening for us, even when it doesn't make sense.
Ugh. Can we what do you mean happening for us? So
I
to
think-
somebody that's like really in it, Jamie,
Yes.
what does that mean?
Let me frame it around our topic of purpose, right?
Okay.
So often people feel empty because they feel like, oh, my purpose needs to be some job. It needs to be my job, or it needs to be this grand thing I haven't figured out yet. But for those of us that have accomplished a goal we always dreamed of, we get to it and we're like, oh, this isn't it, right? It's never, in my opinion, purpose is never this big goal necessarily. Purpose is so often when we're able to serve the person we once were, or serve in a way for something we've gone through. And here's what I mean. I think our purpose can be like, oh, wow, I went through a really freaking hard season in my life. And I now am actually realizing I'm born to be a generational cycle breaker in my family.
Mm-hmm.
That is an incredible purpose, right? Purpose can be like, oh, I've been having a hard season for a long time. And when I actually just take a minute and say hi to someone else who's lonely, maybe it's like in the coffee line at Starbucks, maybe it's the neighbor down the street, whatever it is, you feel in your gut a sense of fulfillment, like a sense of alignment when you're doing something in your purpose. And I think that the big mistake people make is they think it's this end goal, right? A lot of times when people hear my story and they hear Denny's waitress builds billion-dollar company, they think my purpose was to be some big entrepreneur.
It wasn't?
It wasn't.
What was it?
In the journey of how I did it,
Yeah.
I took this massive risk, right? Taking my makeup off on national television when I was told not to, and being brave enough to be seen and helping other women realize that they're worthy and enough exactly as they are, seeing them as who they are. To me, that is my purpose. And in doing that, it just a byproduct of that with It Cosmetics is we built a company with millions and millions and millions and millions of customers. And what's wild is 5% of our customers actually have skin issues, like I do. 95% don't. It's just that they felt seen and connected with something that spoke to their soul, right? For me, being willing to say, here I am exactly as I am, no makeup, and, all my skin issues. I think people connected with that feeling of, oh, I'm enough exactly as I am.
You know what else I think is a really important part of your story? it is waitressing.
Yeah.
It's pushing carts in a supermarket.
Yeah.
It's working in the back house of a restaurant. That's
Yes.
my story too. Helping my best friend on her paper route, bussing tables. And I think when you work in retail or you work in a service job
Yeah.
and you feel at times invisible, you start to realize how important it is to treat everybody with respect and kindness.
Yes.
That there is no work that is beneath you. And when you can bring that level of service to the job that you have right now, even if you hate it, even if people treat you like garbage, even if the back of the house is not getting those pancakes out on time and
Yes.
people are angry, if you can bring a sense of grace and service and just humility to those roles, I think it changes how you show up when things start working out, because you don't ever forget what it's like to be treated like shit
Yes.
because somebody was mad that their pancakes weren't out on time.
Yes. Yes. And also, you and I have had this experience where we've truly gotten to see and be almost every type of person in every type of environment. And so now it's like, whether it's me building a business or you building one of the top shows in the world, one of the top shows in the world, I feel part of that was like, oh, we understand who's listening and watching you right
Yes.
now. I
Yes.
understand who real people are who built, who bought my products. And
Yeah.
and so when you mentioned steps are ordered, it's like, no matter where you are in your life right now, what you're going through, I believe every piece of it, whether it's, oh, someone just, cut me off in a parking lot and screamed at me, or, oh, whatever it might be you're going through, all of those things are happening for you, I believe,
I love
so
that.
that you're amassing this toolbox of understanding and getting strong enough and equipped enough for the purpose you step into.
Amazing. So, Professor of Purpose, Jamie Kern Lima, right there. That's your takeaway number one. The steps are ordered. Believe in that. And this moment is helping you. It's giving you something. So that is one major tool that you used along the way. Let's go back to that moment, because I think you were 28 years old, right? When you're sitting on television in Seattle.
Yeah.
You are a local news anchor. You're living the dream. You're on your way. And you are now starting to have this nightmare happen.
Yes.
Where your rosacea is breaking through on camera in front of everybody, the makeup that they put on you.
Yes.
And you've got people in your ear telling you there's something wrong with your face.
Yes.
And you're realizing, holy cow, the makeup that they've put on my face cannot cover the rosacea and the skin issues that I have. So what do you do in that moment?
Well, the first thing I did was start freaking out, right? And I literally, I started entering this season of self-doubt where I would be live on the air, anchoring the news, thinking thoughts in my head like, oh, am I going to get fired? Are viewers changing the channel right now? Like, am I costing the company ratings, right? So it was this
Could you feel those moments when you could feel like the makeup not kind of like disappearing? Like, there were moments when I used to be a commentator for CNN. I was pre-menopausal, where I could feel the hot flash coming.
Yeah. I didn't feel it until they said it in my ear and in my earpiece. And then what would start to happen was I would get so nervous and stressed out because I kept trying to cover it during commercial breaks. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. So what I remember is like anchoring the news live, and sometimes you have to be happy, tell this happy story, or you're serious telling. And I just remember my heart beating in my ears, hoping people weren't changing the channel. And,
oh my God.
And it started this thing where I, would spend it's funny. I was anchoring the news, and people think when you're doing that, you must have all this money, but you really don't get paid much at all. And I took my little paycheck that I had and started spending it on department store makeup, professional artistry makeup, drugstore makeup. I couldn't find anything that worked. And I had this idea one day, like, oh, if I can't find anything that works for me, there's probably a whole lot of other people out there that feel like makeup doesn't work for them. And it was sort of this idea where I was like, if I could figure out how to make something that worked for me, it helped a whole lot of people. And that was my knowing, or this gut feeling. But then my head, Mel, was like, oh, but you got no money, you got no connections, no one in the beauty industry, you're unqualified. So I sat in this place, right? And we're talking about purpose. I had this gut feeling like I was supposed to go for this thing, but then my head
was like, oh, but here's all the reasons why you're not qualified to do it. Plus you're in your dream job, right? And I sat between those two. And it wasn't until I had this big aha moment of why I needed to do it that pushed me over the edge.
Okay, so what is the aha moment?
Yeah, so I realized one day, I'm like, this makes no sense. There are thousands of makeup companies out there. How does nothing work for me, right? Then I had this moment where I realized I've never seen a model with bright red bumpy skin saying, selling makeup. Like you always see these photoshopped, airbrushed models. And I realized, Mel, like, wow, my whole life I've actually loved those beauty commercials and I love seeing the magazines and I always aspired to look like them. But deep down inside, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough. And I had this moment. I was literally on the news set when this happened where I was like, wait a minute. What if it's not just about launching a makeup product? Like what if I could actually figure out how to do it, which I had no idea how, and I had no money. But it's like, what if I could actually launch a product that works for me? And what if I actually put real people as models, like every age, shape, size, skin tone, skin challenge? What if I use them as models, call them beautiful, and mean it for every little kid out there who's about to start doubting themselves and every grown woman who still does? And that deep source of pain from how I was feeling not enough and what could I do about it? That, in my opinion, is one of the strongest ways to find your purpose. It's what has just destroyed you or hurt you that you've maybe made it through.
Yeah.
And how can you now use that making it through to help someone who's going through it?
Okay. That's like a mic drop moment from our professor of purpose, Jamie Kern Lima. So again, I like to unpack these things to make sure this is a, I always say this is not just a listening podcast, it's a doing podcast. And I want to make sure nobody's left behind.
Yes.
And there was billions of dollars worth of wisdom that you just dropped. And so I want to try to unpack it for anybody that is listening to this and you have this sense that you're made for more.
Yes.
So one of the things that I heard is look in your life and see what problems or frustrations or things that you're struggling with that feel like a setback. And Jamie gave you the example of the rosacea on her skin and her inability to find something that actually could help her solve this issue of being able to cover it up so that she could do her dream job. And that setback is a setup for something new. And then get out of your own sort of selfish or self-loathing or the self-excuses and the self-pity and remind yourself that there are 8 billion people on this planet now. There are other people that are dealing with this.
Yeah.
And that if you can figure out how to put your energy into making this better for yourself and you bring other people into the fold with you, you now have something that's worth working on because it helps you and it's going to help other people.
I just love the story about QVC, your first time going on QVC. And because this is the ultimate story of following your heart and following your gut and doing and staying true to yourself. I feel like that's thrown around all the time. Stay true to yourself. Every time I ask someone, what's your best advice? Stay true to yourself. But this exemplifies, this is textbook, stay true to yourself. I would love for you to share that story.
Yeah, I think that we all kind of know or believe these things like, oh, I need to be true to myself, right? But then when it comes to real life and how we show up and how we decide what to do when everything's on the line, that's when it gets really tough to not just like know our values or know what we believe in, but then to actually live them. And I talk a lot in the book about how while authenticity alone doesn't automatically guarantee success, inauthenticity guarantees failure. And I saw that now play out over a decade in the tens of thousands of entrepreneurs I've had the blessing of meeting, and very few ever make it. I think it's how Oprah has made it. Nobody was ever like her or is ever like her. And to reveal all the parts that normally people would hide, that's how we create connection. That's our superpower. And you know, I after 3 years of hearing no from everyone. I mean, I Angie, and every ounce of my being, I kept feeling in my gut, like, okay, I created this great product with It Cosmetics. It works for me, and I have hereditary rosacea. Nothing else would work. And I just kept feeling in my gut like I need to not just launch this product, but also show on real women, every age, size, skin challenge, skin tone, like show real people using this and show how it works. And I kept having this vision. When I launched the company, it was even before YouTube was doing this. So no one was doing this. All we saw was these ads on television and commercials where it was usually somebody with the same skin tone. They always were like the same age and flawless skin. And you never saw anybody with, that looked like you and like me. You know what I mean? You just never did. And so I had this vision, oh my gosh, if I can create a product that works and like try to shift culture however I possibly can in the beauty industry of how they define beauty. Like that was my deep mission, right? For because growing up when I'd see those ads, I always loved them. I always aspired to look like that, but deep down inside, right? They always made me feel not enough in this weird way. So I was like, oh my gosh, if I can create a company whose mission is so much bigger than me, and I could try to shift culture in the beauty industry and how they define beauty, and change those images for every little girl out there who's about to start doubting herself, and every adult who still does. And so this big vision. And then all of a sudden, for 3 years, everyone's telling me it's not going to work. Everyone's saying no. And when a retailer says no to you, what they're saying is, I don't think that we can make money from you, is what they're saying. We don't believe in what you're doing, or that it will sell, and it will work. And so 3 years of that goes on, including, years of hearing no from QVC. And it's a crazy, wild story I share in the book of how we eventually got a yes to get one shot on QVC. Now, QVC is a live television channel broadcast to 100 million homes. And when you go live, you have this big sales goal each minute that you're live. And if you're not hitting your sales goal, they pull you off, right? And anyhow, after years of rejection, I got one shot, one yes, big yes, to get one chance live on QVC to sell our concealer. And we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, barely in business. And I learned, Angie, that I would need to hit their sales goal in the 10-minute window, I would need to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer. And I also learned the deal was going to be consignment, meaning I had to figure out how to make all the product, pay for it, ship it in, and then get my one big shot on air for 10 minutes. And if it didn't sell, it would all come back to me, which means we'd be out of business. So it was a big risk, and we applied for an SBA loan because we had no money. We had literally no money left. We were down to well under $1,000. So we got 22 banks said no, and the 23rd bank said yes, just to fund the inventory for that one order, for QVC, for that one chance in 10 minutes. So basically everything was on the line. I flew out to QVC a week before the airing, and I sat in their parking lot in this rental car all alone. And I just stared at the front of the building, knowing the next time I walked in there, my whole life was going to change, or I would be bankrupt. And here's where the struggle came is, we hired third-party consultants who are amazing. They help a lot of people succeed on selling in television or selling their products in stores. And they all told me the same thing. They said, if you want a chance at succeeding, here's what you need to do. You need to go on the air in your 10 minutes, use this type of model. And all the models look like they're 12, and they were all the same skin tone with flawless skin. And I'm like, listen, what if I just take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea and show the world how this product works? And what if I put real women of every age and shape and size and skin tone and skin challenge? And I would argue and I say, because if I'm sitting at home watching, how do I know something's going to work for me if I don't see it on someone who looks like me? To me, it was so common sense, and they were mortified. And here's the thing, they wanted me to win, and they were giving me the best advice they knew how on what they said is the only way people will buy a product from something from they would say these unattainable images of aspiration that no one can possibly look like, but that is what sells product. And I'm like, so it's tough. So I sat in that rental car knowing that everything was on the line, knowing I had one shot. And it's, my gut was telling me one thing, right? And experts were telling me another. And these are the moments that define our lives, is when we learn to hear ourselves, hear our gut, and then make the decision to trust it. And it's not always easy, right? And I sat in that rental car every day for a week, and I just, I prayed, I cried, but I also imagined who that woman was watching on the other end. And I don't know why, but I kept imagining a single mom in Nebraska folding laundry who was like too busy to remember that she mattered and that she was beautiful. And I just kept imagining, like, if she was going to turn on her television for a few seconds and I was going to be blessed with a few seconds of her time, like, it came down to this moment where I realized I'd rather have her see me showing women who look like her, calling them beautiful and meaning it, even if she buys nothing. I'd rather do that than sell a ton of product and stand for nothing. And so I knew what I had to do, but it didn't mean it was easy. And I remember walking into the QVC studios and for that one shot, that 10 minutes. And when we went live, so I remember standing there in the studio, there's this giant countdown clock on the floor that started at the 10-minute mark. I was sweating so much, and I'm not nervous for television, but it was that everything was on the line and I was shaking. I remember like hoping my Spanx caught all my sweat because I was like, I can't be sweating through a dress on national television. I was freaking out. But I remember the clock started, and I remember the moment my bare face before shot came up on national television, and I walked over to all the models that I chose as real women, all ages, all shapes, all sizes, all skin tones, all skin challenges. And I remember there was about a minute left in the presentation, and the host says, the tan shade's almost gone, the deep shade's almost sold out. And I was like, and then I remember at the 10-minute mark, the huge sold out sign came up across the screen. I start crying on national television. I remember they cut and then they went to like the next item, which is like Dyson vacuum or Vitamix or Apple iPhone or something. And my husband comes rushing through the double doors of the studio. And I'm like, real women have spoken. And I'm like crying. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And this is like such a guy. But that one airing, Andy, turns into 5 that year, 101 the next year. Anyways, for 8 years straight, I did 250 live shows a year on QVC, and we built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. It is right now at this very moment. Mm-hmm. But I only share that because it was 3 years of them saying no. Yeah. And so, like, no one, whoever's listening and needs to hear this today, no one can tell you how big your dream can be. No one can tell you you're not enough. And when people reject you and they literally look you in the eye and tell you they don't think you're going to make it, or you're not the right fit, or you're not this enough or that enough, like, those are the moments we don't quit. We don't give up. Maybe we cry a little bit, but those are the moments where we listen to our gut and we stay authentic and we keep going. And people who do that are the ones who are able to build something that lasts or that matters or that really, makes a contribution to the world. And I believe every one of us has that inside of us, right? And our life comes down to if we listen to our calling or if we listen to our opposition.
How did you get over that frustration? Because so many of us deal with that on our journey.
And it's hard, right? I think all the frustration made me strong enough to carry the weight of success when I finally got it. And I think a lot of people think, oh, if I just had my dreams come true right now, all my problems would be solved. But like, you just have new problems. I remember, John, like going, oh my gosh. Okay, so many people I think will connect with this out there. I was like, if I could just if I could afford to hire anybody, I would have so much help and my life will be so much better. And then I learned, once we could afford to hire people, oh, it's awesome. They're experts and I'm not. This is great. But now I have a new job of managing everybody, right? And we grew the business to over 1,000 employees. And so, as you grow and grow and grow on your journey, you have different challenges. And I really believe, and this is what I'd say to everyone frustrated right now. And this would have been hard for me to say in the moment, right? These are lessons I've learned. And this is really why I wrote this book, to share them all. To save people nights crying themselves to sleep, at least a few, to save people from making a lot of the mistakes I made, and hopefully take shortcuts, right, to some of the successes they're hoping for, personally and professionally, is really why I wrote the book. But I think that I created an imaginary toolbox in my head, and I would pull from it when I needed to, and I would pull tools. And sometimes they're simple, like a quote from Jay-Z, who says, the genius thing we did was we didn't give up, right? The genius thing we did was we didn't give up. It's like, oh,
okay, sometimes it's that simple. I would pull from this imaginary toolbox when I would be frustrated, nothing's going right, right? And every time I do that, I'd be like, okay. And again, for me, not giving up came down to checking in with my gut and saying, okay, God, I see no proof around me. I see these people I adore, these people that are experts that I am honored to have a meeting with them, right? All these people are telling me I'm not on the right track. And I don't even see proof of sales online, more than 2 to 3 orders. Like, there is no proof around me, right? And for me, that's where faith comes in, right? And checking in with your gut. I mean, faith by definition is believing things you don't have proof of, right? Right. So it's like aligning with that trust, that knowing, that gut, for me, is how you decide, do I keep going? And I think that's really important. And I also think it's perspective. So, when I talk about the toolbox, I would think like, okay, I'm going to choose to believe. I'm going to choose to believe that all of these setbacks around me are just making me stronger to be able one day to carry the weight of my dreams coming true, the weight of the success when it finally happens. It comes, in my opinion, it comes down to mindset, because I think there are probably so many people out there that might have way better products than I created. I probably would never think that. I'm a little biased. I love it. But you know what I'm saying? Or maybe, and there's definitely a million people out there way smarter than me that have created beauty companies. But it's like, what's that differentiator from people that actually make it? I think it comes down to, of course, working really, really hard. Of course, and this is a big one. This one eliminates most people, is not quitting, not giving up every time you get knocked down when your gut says you're on the right track, right? Not quitting. But for me, the single biggest thing I think we did right, and starting with close to nothing, building $1 billion business, is like making the decision to believe that we could. I think that is so important, and learning how to truly just make that decision to believe that you can, because it's really hard. Listen, I have a lot of friends and family I love dearly, like with all my heart. I know they love me, but again, I don't think any of them understand when the first several years of the business, especially when we had no success, why I felt like it was the right thing for me to be doing, why I gave up my career in television that was my life dream to not pay myself for years, eat Costco hot dogs, and just believe it was going to happen, right? So just learning to really figure out how to do those things, I think, for everybody is so important. And let's get really real. I was blessed to start this business with my husband, but for many of my friends and for many other entrepreneurs I know, and many other people I know, sometimes you also have to you have to protect who you turn the volume up on and who you turn the volume down on. And sometimes it's our friends or our family or other people's opinions. Sometimes it's our own partner, right? Sometimes it's our own partner. So this can be a challenge for people to navigate when they have a calling on their heart and they know they want to maybe leave that secure, safe job with great benefits. And listen, this is hard to do. It's hard to do, but I believe when we stay in our comfort zone, because it's very easy to get talked into it. It's what's safe. It's what's often guaranteed. It's what makes everyone around us feel comfy. But when we stay in our comfort zone, I think that it comes at the price of chipping away at our soul. And I think, and why I wrote this book, if people truly learn how to tune into their and trust themselves and believe in themselves and believe they're enough, especially women, right? If we don't do those things, we risk never becoming the person we were born to be. So this book is all about stepping into becoming the person you're born to be and how to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Baby Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.